2 years after my mother died, I went to a psychic. I was desperately seeking a way to connect to her, to feel her presence even though she was gone. My mother had dropped dead of a heart attack when she was 61 years old, without any warning. My whole family was devastated and in such deep grief we could barely function. Though time had passed, the big aching space in our hearts still pained us every day. Whenever my father used to come and visit me from Chicago, I would hear him sobbing every morning in the guest room. I don't really believe in psychics, but I was so sad and missing my mother so much, I decided, why not? What do I have to lose? 30 years later, I don't remember the psychic's name or what she looked like or even where I went to see her. What I do remember is that she took my hand and said, "I see your mother, and she is standing right behind you. She is here right now in this room, and she is saying that she loves you." And I remember thinking, oh wow, if only that were true. If only she were really here with me. I don't believe that the psychic saw anything, even though it made me feel good for a moment. But what I have come to understand is that in a certain way, my mother was standing behind me, and next to me, and in front of me, and that even though she was gone physically, her love still remains and continues to guide me and comfort me. Our Kabbalists and Hasidic masters teach that the body doesn't have a soul. The soul has a body. And when the body dies, the soul, the neshama, ascends to a higher spiritual realm that we call Olam Haba, the world to come. The connection between the living and the departed is not severed by death. Instead, the souls of our loved ones remain connected to us, offering guidance, inspiration, and comfort in times of need. We may not admit it, but sometimes many of us really do feel their presence. We have these moments when an undefinable, familiar, loving energy surrounds us and envelops us. And though our rational mind tells us that this is our imagination or wishful thinking, our divine spark, our soul, hints at something more powerful, that our neshama is connecting to theirs. I can't tell you how many people have confided in me that at a moment of joy or a moment of sorrow, they suddenly feel the unmistakable presence of their loved ones. I'm telling you, Rabbi, my father was in the room. Rabbi, I could feel my mother. I know she was there. Sometimes it happens spontaneously, and sometimes we can actually call them into our presence. I recently officiated at a wedding where the groom's father had passed away 5 years before. The groom had been very close to his father and wanted to somehow incorporate his dad into this joyful and important moment of his life. So he and his bride decided to set aside the first chair in the front row next to the aisle as his father's chair. As they explained to me, we wanted him to have a seat at our wedding. They decorated the chair with ribbons, placed his photo on it, and made sure that no one else sat there. And during the ceremony, I saw the groom glance over at that empty chair with tears in his eyes. Only it wasn't empty for him. He was feeling his father's presence and his blessing. I always feel my mother's presence when I light Shabbat candles, and not just her, but both my grandmothers and my bubby, my great-grandmother, who didn't die until I was 19. As I touch the match to the candles and gently wave my hands 3 times, I am not only inviting the Shabbat into my home, but also the women who came before me and loved me so much. At that moment, we are all lighting the Shabbat candles together, just like we used to when I was a child. And after the candle blessing, just like they did, I whisper a special prayer for all my loved ones, asking God to watch over them and protect them, asking God, and also asking those 4 extraordinary women whose souls I see in the flickering holy Shabbat lights. We feel them, and many of us also talk to them. How can we not? They had such a huge impact and influence on our lives. When my mother turned 60, my sister and I decided to surprise her with a birthday trip to London. She loved Jane Austen and Agatha Christie and everything English and had never traveled out of the United States. She was thrilled, and we had a wonderful 10 days seeing the sights, going to the theater, and having high tea in an elegant cafe. Little did we know that she would be gone a year later. I have this beautiful framed photo of the 3 of us standing in front of the Tower of London, and she looked so happy. I talk to that photo all the time. She died before I adopted my daughter, Lily, and how many times did I tell her I wish she were here to give me advice on how to raise my daughter, or that she could be at Lily's bat mitzvah or Lily's graduation. And then I would put my finger to my lips and touch her face in the photo and tell her how much I loved her. Sometimes our loved one talks to us. At moments of crisis or stress, we hear their voices, their advice, their warning, or their comfort. I have shared with a lot of you that my father was a big-time gambler and that he spent money like water. During our recent heat wave, the air conditioner in my car stopped working. Actually, it started blowing hot air, which is not great when it's 99 degrees. So I took it to be repaired, and it turned out that the warranty had just expired, and the repair was going to take 5 days and be really, really expensive. Needless to say, I was upset. I was really upset. I was so aggravated. And then suddenly, out of the blue, I hear my father's voice say to me what he would say always in times like this. Hey, it's only money. It's only money. The subtext being, nobody died, nobody's in the hospital, so what's the big deal? You win some, you lose some. And I actually started laughing. I shook my head and said out loud, "You're right, Dad, it's only money." And I felt a lot better. Recently, this new psychological theory came out about grief. It's called the theory of continued bonds. The main idea is that when dealing with grief and loss, closure is no longer a goal. Rather, we can continue our connection with those we have lost through a multitude of ways so that our bonds do not end, but instead transform into a new, different, but equally valid relationship. Well, I'm glad psychologists finally caught up with Judaism and the teachings that we've had for thousands of years. Who wants closure? We don't believe in closure. Why would we want to close the door on the most important people in our lives? That's why we have Yizkor 4 times a year and Yahrzeit once a year, to remember and connect and honor them. That's why we say Kaddish, to reach out to them and bless them, and according to our mystics, elevate their souls. That is why we name our children after them, to carry on their memory, but also to bring them back to life every time we say their names. My daughter's name in Hebrew is Ruth Rachel Ariel Bat Sarah Leah. Ruth for my mother Ruth, Rachel for my grandmother Rose, whom I was so close to, Ariel for my father Leonard, whose name was Aryeh Leb, Bat, daughter of Sarah Leah, me, Susan Lee. 3 generations in one name. Ruth Rachel Ariel Bat Sarah Leah, a piece of poetry, an incantation, a summoning of those beloved souls at the most important times in my daughter's life, in all our children's lives, at their bris or baby naming, at their bar bat mitzvah, their weddings, and if God forbid we need to say a Misha Baruch for them, we say those beautiful Jewish names, and those neshamas in the next world are right there with us. On the holidays, we make their kugel and plum cake and matzo ball soup using their recipes. We taste their food and are flooded with so many happy memories, and suddenly they are right there at the table with us. We tell their jokes, use their expressions, wear their talit, or use part of it on our wedding chuppah, and they are right there with us. We keep precious objects that belong to them, a kiddush cup, a menorah, jewelry, their books. For 25 years, I kept a pink lace dress of my mother's in my closet. I never wore it, but whenever I was feeling overwhelmed or sad or lonely, I would open the closet door and see it hanging there, still faintly smelling of Taboo, her favorite perfume. Sometimes I would gently touch the lace and remember all the times she wore that dress, and I would get strength and comfort. Yizkor means remember. We remember them and bless them and cry for them and miss them. And we can also invite them. We can welcome them into our lives with our hearts and souls and all our senses. Yizkor means remember. Perhaps they are also remembering us from a holy, transcendent place that is beyond our comprehension. The Kabbalah teaches that at the moment of passing, every positive thought, word, and deed that occurred during the person's life is concentrated into a pristine spiritual light. This light is revealed to the world and in the heavenly spheres, where it continues to shine and have an effect on those above and below. May the light of our loved ones shine upon us and brighten our lives with love and goodness and kindness and compassion. May their memories be a blessing to us, and may we follow their example and be a blessing to them. Amen.